It is 10 o'clock and it's time for the council to be in session. Ms. Goldberg and Ms. Sikowski are here. We need 7 more for a quorum. It's 10 minutes after 10 and we still only have 3 members present. Will the council members please come to the council chamber? Council rules are motion in order to adjourn for lack of a quorum 15 minutes after 10. Here's Padilla. Council will please come to order. Call the roll.
Burnson, Chick, Fear, Galanter, Goldberg, Hernandez, Holden, Mr. Pacheco, Padilla, Ridley, Thomas, Warner, Wax, Walters, Ferraro, 10 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
Yeah, this is a meeting of the City Council for the City of Los Angeles. On the 6th day of June, the year 2000, there are 15 council districts in the city. The regular meeting days are Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We are currently being viewed by cable subscribers throughout the Los Angeles area on Channel 35, and we're also being monitored by council phone. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
All right, Mr. Savornich moves, Ms. Misakowski seconds. If there's no objections, unanimous vote. The next item,
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
if there's no objections, unanimous vote. Next item.
Mr. President, this is the first Tuesday of the month. You have the invocation.
Yes, we were honored to have Father Gregory Savchuk, pastor of the St. Innocents Orthodox Church, representing the LA Interfaith Community and the Eastern Orthodox Community of Los Angeles. Would everyone please stand? Father Gregory.
Thank you. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. O Lord God, grant unto these thy servants wisdom to rightly direct and administrate the affairs of this city. Grant them, O Lord, thy peace and patience to deliberate fairly upon those matters which they are called upon to decide. May they always remember to act within the civil authority given to them for the good of the people whose lives are entrusted to them, to govern with a firm but gentle hand, remembering always that they would have no power were it not granted them from thee, our heavenly Father, who is above all. May this gathering be fruitful, productive, and reflective of thy will, for the good and benefit of all who call this city of Los Angeles their home. Bless them, preserve them, keep them, O Lord, as leaders within this great and blessed nation and this fair city. Hearken to the voice of our supplication. Have mercy upon us and save us, O God, For thou art good and lovest mankind, always, now, and ever, into ages of ages. Amen. May God bless you.
Okay, the next item.
Before beginning the regular agenda, there are several items to continue or receive and file. Item number 2, Building and Safety has advised that that matter may be received and filed.
If there's no objections, unanimous vote.
Item number 3, request to continue to 3 weeks to June 27th.
Item number 3, if there's no objections, unanimous vote.
Item number 5, a request from Councilmember Mistakowski's office to continue that until August 8th. That would be 60 days.
If there's no objections, unanimous vote.
Item number 15, the city attorney's request that be continued 1 day to June 7th.
If there's no objections, unanimous vote.
Next item, Mr. President, you have a confirmation of city official. Item number 14 is confirmation of Patricia Franco to the Board of Civil Service Commissioners to the term ending June 30th, 2001.
Ms. Franco, is she here? Ms. Goldberg, this is a motion needed. Ms. Goldberg moves, this is the appointment of Patricia Franco to the Board of Civil Service Commission. Any discussion? Mr. Padilla?
Hello. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Patricia.
Good morning.
Colleagues, I want to rise in support of Patricia Franco's appointment. I've known her for many years now with all her good work out in the San Fernando Valley, not only through the probation department working with at-risk youth and other youth in the San Fernando Valley, but also as president and founder of the San Fernando Valley Opportunity Through Education Fund. She's been promoting equity in terms of educational opportunity. She's been promoting equity in terms of opportunity for all communities, for all people in all communities. And I think her perspective and experience professionally and civically would be a great asset to this position. And I urge you for your support.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, we heard the motion. Prepare the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Patricia Franco, you've been approved by the City Council. We want to thank you for serving the city.
Thank you very much.
Okay, forthwith on that. Okay. Wait till we get to it, will you? Next item.
Items noticed for public hearing. Item number 1 is a building and safety report and a confirmation of assessment.
That's a hearing.
Yes,
Anybody
Mr.
in the
President.
audience wants to be heard on item number 1? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Any discussion on this item? If not, prepare the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item.
Item number 4 is also a public hearing. It's a public convenience and necessity for alcoholic sales at 3607 South Vermont. I need a motion from the floor to grant the appeal.
This is a public hearing item. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to be heard on this item? Have no cards. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Mr.
Is that Mr. Thomas' district?
Yes.
Don't you want to wait until he gets here?
Yeah, I was going to suggest we wait until he gets here. He's due in, so we'll hold it on the desk. Okay, the next item.
Items for which public hearings have been held, items 6 through 13. Items 12 and 13 both have majority and minority reports. Do you wish to hold those, call them special?
Yes. 12 is called special, and 13 is called special.
9 special for a question.
9 for a question. There's somebody here that's on item number 5. First of all, it's not a public hearing item. Secondly, it was continued. How long is it being continued?
60 days, August 8th.
It's going to be continued for 60 days, August 8th, so those of you here on item 5, it's not going to be heard today. Okay, we have 6 through 13, with the exception of 9, 12, and 13. Prepare the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
Those are approved. Next item.
Items for which public hearings have not been held, items 16 through 24.
16 through 24. We have somebody who wants to be heard on 20, we'll call that one special. Anybody else want to be heard on any of the items 16 through 24? All right, the public hearing's closed on all but 20. Any specials by council members? 19 is called special. 23 is called special. Any others? Any others?
Project account to which it's being transferred should be 1093, so it's just a correction.
Okay. There's no objections to that correction, so we have 21 as corrected. Okay, let's see now, we have 16 through, the ordinances we'll hold on the desk. So 16 and 17 are ordinances, we'll leave those on the desk, so we have... we have 12 now. All right, put Mr. Fuhr's name on there. Okay, we have 16 through 24 with the exception of 19, 20, 21 as corrected, and 23. Prepare the roll on the balance. Tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Those are approved. Next item.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 25 is the mayor's veto message.
The motion would be, shall we override the mayor's veto? All right, it takes 10 votes, so prepare the roll. Prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
7 eyes, 5 noes.
That has failed. And the next item. Next item.
Items 26 on the supplemental agenda, items 26 and 27 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Any specials there? 26 or 27?
Yeah.
Huh? 26 is called special. Next item.
Item
Confusing vote on the, yeah.
Yeah. 26 is called special. 27, prepare the roll on 27. Tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
That is approved. We're going to re-vote on the veto, so 28 and 29 is before us.
Yes, Mr. President.
Any specials there? 28 and 29? If not, prepare the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Those are approved. 30 is a closed session item, so we'll leave that on the desk. So, are you ready to vote on the veto again? Item 25. Huh? Vito he's an Italian, isn't he? Okay, prepare the roll on the the motion is to, shall the mayor be overridden? It takes 10 votes. Mr. Fuhr made that motion, so prepare the roll. Prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
6 ayes, 7 noes.
You had more votes the last time. Okay, that failed, and I guess we'll just leave it on the desk for tomorrow's the last day?
Why are we, I move to receive and file?
Okay, the next item.
Item number 4 is on the desk. It's a public convenience or necessity, and it's in Council District 8.
Okay, Mr. Ridley Thomas, we held that for...
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, there have been a series of public hearings on this matter. It has been conditioned appropriately. The community that's most directly impacted has had opportunity to voice its concerns. The company in question has heard and agreed to comply with those concerns, even in some instances on a voluntary basis. And so it's with that in mind that I think we're in good standing to move approval, and I would do so. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay,
He made the motion to grant the application.
okay. Any further discussion? If not, prepare the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is on item number 4. It's approved. Miss,
Mr. President, sorry.
Yeah.
May I ask for a reconsideration on 27 so that I may vote no?
on 27,
Right.
if there's no objections, we'll allow you to vote no, Mrs. Walters.
Thank you.
Okay? Yeah, because it doesn't change the outcome. Next item.
Item number 9, called special by Councilmember Goldberg.
Ms. Goldberg?
What you want to vote no on that?
I just wanted to know the boundaries, and I'm looking at the file. If you give me another minute, I'll be done with it.
Okay, then we'll move on to the next item.
Item number 12, called special. There's a majority and minority report.
Mr. Hernandez, you call a 12?
I wanted to report, if I could, I know that there was a majority and minority report, and my inclination is to support the minority report. And so I wanted, if CRA wanted to make a presentation or someone explain to us why they feel we should exempt someone from having to comply with the affordable housing component of the CRA.
Okay, yeah, okay, the CRA people are here. We'll have them make a report, and then then I'll call on you, Mr. Hernandez. Forthwith on item 21.
Good morning. Don Spivak from the Community Redevelopment Agency. The proposed action is to approve a waiver of the agency's adopted housing policy in connection with a request for qualifications to develop 2 agency-owned parcels on Bunker Hill, and to approve the allocation of proceeds of the sale or lease of those parcels to future development projects in Council District 9 south of the Santa Monica Freeway. Bunker Hill is one of 3 redevelopment project areas in downtown Los Angeles where the agency has also developed a substantial amount of affordable housing in the context of redevelopment plans that call for mixed income housing as a primary component of their development programs. On Bunker Hill, the agency has facilitated the completion of 1,170 units of elderly housing at Angeles Plaza, 56 units of affordable housing at the Grand Promenade Project, and 86 units at the Promenade Towers Project, all of which provide affordable housing as part of that project area. In the Central Business District, the agency has funded the rehabilitation or replacement of about 3,000 single-room occupancy units, almost half of that housing stock mostly in the Central City East area of the downtown. In addition, the agency has financed over 1,100 other affordable housing units in both mixed-income projects such as Renaissance Tower, Metropolitan, Grand Central Square, and in projects such as the recently completed Villa del Pueblo and Parkside Apartments. The 2 Bunker Hill parcels are specifically very difficult to develop because they're in the midst of mostly high-rise construction and have the added complication of needing street frontage at different levels, due in part to the fact that Grand Avenue is a 2-level street. There are also sites that require more expensive high-rise construction than other sites in other parts of the city. An analysis prepared for the agency showed that at market rate, those parcels could generate about $7 million in revenue, while adherence to the housing policy would create a gap needing an agency subsidy of nearly twice that amount. The Council District 9 Recovery Redevelopment Project area south of the Santa Monica Freeway is a project that to date has generated very little of its own revenue. While it has great potential, there are serious needs today to provide decent, affordable housing, basic consumer services such as supermarkets and drugstores, recreational facilities, and open space, and jobs for its many low-income residents. By directing the proceeds of that sale or lease of the Bunker Hill parcels to this needy area, it will be possible to jumpstart important projects that will begin to deliver facilities and services to that community. In addition, directing these resources to the project area south of the Santa Monica Freeway will partially redress the historic outflow of resources from the 9th Council District to other parts of the city. A key part of the specifics of this waiver are that the sites are difficult to develop, they're expensive to develop, extraordinarily so. There was supplemental material that was submitted at the request of the committee to the council members that further documented the difficulties and the uniqueness of these sites. There has been a substantial amount of affordable housing that has been developed in the downtown area. There is a need for a broader mix of housing to fully develop the downtown, including the Bunker Hill and Central Business District and Little Tokyo redevelop project areas to the full potential. The development of the site will still result in the development of at least the same number of affordable housing units as would have taken place had the policy been followed, except they will be developed in other locations.
What is the period of time for the bid proposals?
The expectation is that pending the approval of an action on the request for qualifications, it will be issued within the next several days. There will be approximately a 30 to 45-day response period on the request for qualifications that will narrow the field to a very limited request for proposals, probably an additional 60 days for that. So we should be back with a recommendation within 90 days on the selection of a developer for board and council consideration.
All right, Mr. Hernandez.
Mr. President, now that I fully heard the report, I rise to support the minority report. And I move it at this time. You know, some of the policies we're setting here are real dangerous. For some reason, we're saying mixed income people cannot live at Bunker Hill, and that projects can't be developed that way. And it's bothersome to me because we shouldn't have economic barriers to where people live. And CRA is the agency that's supposed to be working on that. And a substantial amount of development has happened, but we shouldn't be trying to separate people by class and income. And this is one of those projects where that has to be encouraged. And I think that's part of the role. The other precedent that the recommendation is setting is that when you have economic development and revitalization in one district, it should stay in that district. What's bothersome to me is when I look at where Bunker Hill is located and what's just west of the freeway, when you look at issues of schools and issues of housing in Westlake, no, but you could still use the money for housing. We're saying it has to go south of the freeway. That makes no sense to me when we're dealing with the issues of housing. And I'm not saying it should go west of the freeway. I'm just saying we shouldn't limit it to the 9th Council District south of the freeway. That is another dangerous precedent that's being set here. Because, again, I thought the purpose of revitalization was to revitalize the city and to try and keep a city together. And what I see this recommendation definitely doing is separating people by income and separating a city by council boundaries. Members of the council, we're going to be doing reapportionment, and council boundaries shouldn't be the basis of decisions. There is an issue of need. There is an issue of how we satisfy that need, but I'm also worried about the precedent we're setting when we're saying that in certain communities, in certain areas, it makes more sense to build market-based housing and not deal with the affordability issue. I think that's been part of the problem the city's had in its planning. There's a reason our children are bused, and people live where they can live in this city, and the problem is we're the ones who've been designating that, and we have a city that's very much separated. And so again, I move the minority report in the interest of us trying to be one city.
Mrs. Walters?
Thank you.
Mrs. Walters, let me point out that this did have a public hearing, but Carol Schatz would like to be heard if there's, after you want to let her speak now?
You're the chair.
Well, I've heard her many times, so I don't know if I, but Carol, I'll give you a couple minutes. Tell us all you know, it won't take very long.
Thank you. Carol Schatz, President of Central City Association. I'm here respectfully to urge your support for the agency's position on these two very important projects for these reasons. Downtowns all over the country, and certainly in California, are special cases, and they require a very strong residential base to bring themselves back. And that residential base has to be mixed income. It can't just be affordable, it can't just be SROs, it can't just be low income. If you take a look at the number of units that exist in downtown Los Angeles now, largely assisted by the CRA, we're talking about 8,000 residential units, and almost 6,000 of those are low income or SRO units. Only 2,000 of the housing units in the core of downtown are market rate units. And so we have an imbalance in our downtown that may not exist anywhere else in the city. Clearly in the rest of the city, the imbalance goes the other way, and we recognize this. We would ask you to recognize the importance of supporting a residential community that reflects all incomes. You understand that this particular site has particular features that increase the costs and make it absolutely not feasible economically to do anything other than a market rate project. I want to emphasize again that in no other downtown anywhere in the country is there even a requirement that each project have a 20% set aside. That's something that's peculiar to Los Angeles. I'm not here to argue that today, but we're saying downtown has made an enormous contribution to the problems of affordable housing throughout the city since 1975. 17,000 affordable units have been developed. $316 million of Bunker Hill money has been spent to attempt to solve the problems that exist. We believe we've made an extraordinary contribution to providing affordable housing for the citizens of this community, and we would ask this community to recognize the important need of providing market rate, mixed income, low income, and affordable units in the downtown area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Walters.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't agree with Ms. Schatz on her presentation. The facts of this matter are, council members, that this is a project that the mayor is interested in. The board of CRA adopted without the affordable housing, and that whether we believe it or not, there is no law requiring affordable units to be included in any of our housing. Looking at the reality that this could be built without any set-asides for affordable housing there, it seemed prudent to have some money set aside for these affordable housing units to be built at another location and for economic development in the city's most depressed area. The city that was the site for recovery money in '92, where the least amount of recovery money has been spent. It's also the district that houses Bunker Hill, that has built housing all over the city, in many districts throughout the city, but very little in CD9 where that money is generated. There is no retrenchment on my part from the need to build affordable housing here in Los Angeles, and to recognize that affordable housing needs to be built in all parts of the city, and certainly in downtown. It does not need to be concentrated. The SROs in Central City East, on Skid Row, were built, refurbished to meet some of the needs of the homeless population. But we have people who are working poor, who need decent, safe places to live, and this money will be put to good use in building housing in CD9 for those persons. We have a very densely populated district composed of, or comprising a lot of people new to this country who need to have decent, safe, affordable housing. And I urge a support for the majority report.
Goldberg?
Well, I actually voted for the majority report, but I have to admit that the arguments made by Councilmember Holden really by the end of the meeting were persuading me to change my mind. I have a kind of a foot in each camp. I understand the arguments that are being made to make this exception. On the other hand, I also agree with the idea of the policy, which is to try to have some kind of integrated income housing rather than all units all low income or units all market rate. So I really am not sure how I'm actually going to vote, but I did want to say that this is, I think, one of those things that are very difficult because you can argue that, well, maybe it'll prevent the project from happening at all. Okay, you don't want that to happen. On the other hand, you can argue that if we don't have a standard, then of course we can't get anybody to do projects like that. And I have to admit to being in a real quandary about this one because I find that the couple of areas where we have finally done some mixed income housing in my district, that they have been very successful, and people were afraid when we started to do them, particularly the one I believe at Western and Hollywood. They said, oh no, do it all one way or the other, but the developer actually was more than willing to do the mix, and I think it's going to make a real difference there to keep it from being all low or all market. So I find this a tough one, and I voted with the majority, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do now, but I will say that the arguments are quite persuasive that if we don't ask people to do this, we don't, in other words, require it, they're certainly not going to volunteer, and then we really have a policy that becomes meaningless. And so that's my conundrum here.
Mr. Pacheco?
I thought at this time we might want to give the CRA an opportunity and staff to tell us what the process they went through to find that a waiver was appropriate in this instance and what maybe the history was in this project, to give us a little bit of background as to whether or not we're in the spirit of the prior arrangement.
Thank you. There are a couple of things.
Please hold my time, though.
Okay. First off, in response to some of the other comments as well, we have developed virtually all of the mixed income housing that has taken place with public participation in our various project areas, including quite a few of them in the downtown. And this was a very difficult decision on our part as well. The reason that the agency adopted a housing policy in the first place with this requirement was to encourage mixed income communities. And the policy was set up to do it where possible by doing mixed income buildings. Now, in the downtown area, there are a couple of things that need to be pointed out. One is that the density of development in the downtown is such that you have various developments that are very close to each other. So they function, even if they may be in separate buildings on the same block, to create a mix of income. The other was specifically with regard to this particular parcel. We had Kaiser Marston Associates do an evaluation of the financial characteristics associated with apartment development on these sites. And that was done so that we had a better handle on just what would be involved financially in being able to go forward with this particular development. They looked at a number of options. They looked at one option where the site was developed completely at unrestricted market rates. They looked at the agency policy of 80% of the units being restricted. They looked at one in which there was an assumption of tax-exempt financing being built into it. And they looked at, in fact, they looked at two assumptions with regard to potential for tax credits. When they went through this economic analysis, they came to a number of very serious conclusions. One was that there's an extremely limited pool of tax-exempt financing available for mixed-income projects. And given the competitive standards currently being imposed, a project would probably have to have a set-aside of up to 50% of the units for very low-income households to maximize the chance for receiving such funding. It also looked at different ways of configuring it to see if there are ways to improve those figures, and concluded that it was still a very difficult situation because you would have to get into probably structuring various condominium options on the sites, which would make it more difficult to get a developer and less likely for a project to come to closure. The bottom line in looking at it was also a financial one in terms of the impact and the ability to carry out other redevelopment activities. And in this particular case, as I mentioned a bit earlier, the difficulty of developing the site imposed some extraordinary costs in making this site developable because of its very urban location, the need for high-rise development, the fact that high-rise development is more expensive. It's an urbanized site, which means that you have to work around other buildings, you have to work within the street to find staging areas. And bottom line was that this site, without the restrictions of the housing policy imposed in this one case, would generate something in the range of approximately $7 million of positive revenue, that were it to be developed with the agency housing policy not waived, that not only would there not be a positive land value, there would in fact be a need for roughly another $6 to $7 million worth of subsidy. So therefore it was a $7 million subsidy as opposed to a $7 million revenue generator to do projects elsewhere. To just summarize one other point, to indicate the number of affordable units as part of the total number of housing units that have been developed downtown. Exclusive of the single-room occupancy hotels, the agency has been involved in developing about 5,800 units in downtown Los Angeles, and of those, 2,941, or 51%, are affordable units. So there is a very substantial affordable housing component that has been developed and continues to be developed in the downtown. The affordable housing component of the agency's policy aims for 20%, generally on a site-by-site basis, but in the downtown area where you're talking about a very pedestrian-oriented environment, you do need to look at, in essence, city blocks where you have multiple projects in very close proximity that function, in a sense, as projects combining various buildings. So you're dealing with a different physical situation. 51% of the total family units, non-SRO units that have been developed downtown are affordable. When you include the SRO units, the percentage of affordable housing increases to over 75%. So there is a very sizable affordable housing component in downtown, and there really does need to be a broader mix of residential at a broader range of income levels for that community to fully function as well.
Mr. Pacheco.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. All I would simply say is that I can see where the concerns are raised when you look individually at this one building, but I think it would be inappropriate to not put it in context and look at the big picture here. And as has been given by the report, if you look at the immediate surrounding community where the building is located, 38% of it does have affordable housing there. We try to go for a goal of 20%. If you expand to the main downtown community, you're looking at 51%. And if you want to even include the SROs, you're looking at over 70% of affordable housing in the area. So it all depends on how you want to look at it. If you want to single out this one building, yes, I could understand that you could see the concern for market rate being provided there. But I don't think when we look at and we make decisions here, we only single out the building, whether it be a land use decision. In my district, where we're looking at one property, we always look at the community and the surrounding community to see the overall picture. And in this case, I would urge a support for the majority report, and I would move the majority report.
Mrs. Chick. Hello?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we hold this over until tomorrow. Colleagues, this is always when there's a majority and minority report, it is a more difficult decision. And this is a complicated and important issue. I just was handed the report about 15 or 20 minutes ago. And so I would like to be able to vote thoughtfully and to be briefed, as well as to read the report more thoughtfully than I can while the debate is going on. So I would move a delay until tomorrow.
Mr. Burnson?
Yes, members of the council, I did listen to what Mike said, and I understand that. The key, however, is you need to build housing that fits the area, the people that work in that area. What is really lacking in downtown Los Angeles is the presence of a residential community. That's what's hurt this city from the word get-go. And 25 years ago, when I recommended, when I served on the Blue Ribbon Committee, I recommended using the second and third upper stories on Broadway and Spring Street for residential use. Everybody told me I was nuts, okay? Well, maybe I am nuts, but, you know, one of those things. Now it's amazing that 25 years later we're looking at doing that. Yeah, we're all nuts now. But anyway, the key to what I think making a community the right way, and it shouldn't be classified in any racial manner. This is an economic matter. And affordable housing and housing that is market rate should be combined. You should never have separate buildings for each. They ought to be combined, okay? I'm going to support the majority report here in spite of that, but I would hope that when we do these things in the future, that we look at putting the housing that is below market rate, we put it in, we mix it in together so that we don't create separate little barrios or ghettos or whatever you want to call them, or economically disadvantaged particular areas. You want to mix it up. That's the way to present housing when you build it downtown. And we ought to be doing, and I think Mr. Hernandez's remark is perfectly correct. A lot of the money that comes from the affordable housing area, of the 20% or more, there's no law that says it just has to be 20%. It can be more than 20%. It has to be at least 20%. There's no reason why some of that can't go on the other side of the freeway where it's applicable. Those are people that also have access and work and could work in the downtown area, and we ought to consider those things. It shouldn't, you know, one of the reasons that we put the clause in, and I was the one basically that suggested that to the assemblyman at that time who put the legislation through, that we took the 20% set aside. We said that it doesn't have to be within the boundaries of the redevelopment area. That's the only thing that does not have to be used within that boundary, is housing, because there are times when you can have accessible housing or replacement housing. And essentially, I think that this probably is a good project. I hope we vote on it today because I want to be able to vote. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow. But the point is that I would hope that in the future you'll take into consideration some of the things that Mr. Hernandez mentioned.
Ms. Sikowski?
Thank you. My question is really, if we follow through the majority report and put the proceeds of the sale of this property committed to an affordable housing project in the area as designated, what or how soon do we follow through with that commitment? I have seen set-aside money for housing put into an account, and because of runaway costs and other things, the money that is put to do something, if it's not spent right away, it never catches up with what the cost of the project might be, and so we never achieve the goal of what that set-aside is supposed to be. So is this tied to a specific expenditure of this money within a reasonable period of time, and are the variety of things that can be used in terms of other things that might be needed there? Is it only for affordable housing? Is it for affordable that might be a complement to a market-priced project that might be going into the area that we can piggyback with and expand? Is it density bonus part of those considerations? What are the range of things, and how soon are we committed to spend the money?
The majority report requires that the affordable housing south of the freeway be built concurrently with the development of market rate housing on the Bunker Hill site. So they
So
would
there's
be
a
developed
tie
in the
that
same
it has to
timeframes.
be, it has to be found and built simultaneously.
That's correct. And it also, reading from the report here, it requires a minimum of 130 units of affordable housing at the alternate sites.
Okay. That was my concern, that this not just be put money, that this was not money put aside that would just sit there and start losing its value as we get into inflationary cycles.
Mr. Holden, the author of the minority report.
When this matter came before the committee, the concurrent development requirement was not incorporated in it at all. Is that right, sir?
That's correct. That was added.
So that was not your intent to do it that way, and it will be your intent, be assured there will be problems along the way which will cause it not to happen. And the cost growth associated with affordable housing south of the freeway will become a factor. Now, what bothers me is that we have guys like Richard Alatorre, Montoya, Senator Torres, and others who fought for these affordable housing percentages. And now my friends are giving them away easily. Hard-fought battles. Montoya is the author of the legislation which required that affordable housing money could be used, CRA money could be used to develop affordable housing outside of redevelopment areas. Is that right, sir?
That's correct.
That is correct. And also, as a deal, you made that you would establish a policy to build affordable housing within the redevelopment area. That is correct as well. They fought for it and they won it, and now my friends want to give it away. And then you have to learn the lesson all over again about have and have-nots. What did Mr. Burnson say? It's an economic problem as it relates to developing housing. And I would be inclined to be with Mr. Hernandez, but on this particular case, I want a waiver. He's a nice guy, and he sees what the problems are. The problems will be have and have-nots, ghetto versus upscale living. Come on. They don't want people there who are not rich. That's why they're trying to cut a deal through us. I will never, ever vote for anything like that. I'm disappointed that you would even make the request. Now, when you go look at the housing project with Goldrich and Kessis built over there in Lincoln, they have affordable housing units in there and everybody getting along very well. The ones they have downtown, the same thing. Who is this developer and who does he think he is to come to make such a request? And who does he own to think that he can get the votes? My friends, I'm telling you, we develop a policy because it's the right thing to do. We've seen too many ghettos in our community where housing projects, in fact, have failed. And we made a giant step in order to correct the problem. And you did that. You took the leadership, not just in the city of Los Angeles, but throughout the state of California. They're doing it elsewhere as well. Why should you step back now? Why should you renege now? They were insensitive to the need to develop affordable housing. So they came to the committee with a program, we'll build these luxury apartments downtown, and at some later date, we'll deal with affordable housing. I said, your heart's not even in the right place. Why don't you think about doing it concurrently? Oh yeah, that's something that we'll include in the proposal, in the majority report. You think they're going to fight to do that for the poor people, people who need the help? Heck no. No. I still stand behind the minority report. Deny this request for the waiver. It is absolutely wrong. If you don't believe it, take it to the people. And they'll tell you they're not in support of this. Why are you taking away the right for them to live in a nice upscale setting? I don't like you for it either. If you're going to put it over tomorrow, go ahead, but I still don't like you for it. How can you be flip-flop on this wishy-washy position? Minority, my friends, some of my friends are there. I understand, I like my friends, but I don't like this. I hate it.
Mr. Hernandez?
You know, members of the council, last of my recollection, Carol Schatz might represent the Central City, but she doesn't live in the Central City. The reality is people do have to live close to where they work. And I know that when we were talking about the theaters at the Sheridan Grand, and the fact that nobody was attending them, it became the people who live west of the freeway who started going to those theaters. When we talk about a shopping community, it's people as a whole. But for some reason, when we talk about Bunker Hill, we're creating this exclusive community. And you know, I know that people work in those buildings who can't afford to live there. I know that people work in these skyscrapers that were subsidized by CRA that can't afford to live there. I know that people were moved out of there, okay, and promised replacement housing who can't afford to live there. Now, when you talk about SRO housing, let's understand the attitude the city was taking about Skid Row, as opposed to the attitude for the people who work there. Now, what I happen to know is the people who work downtown, particularly in Bunker Hill, aren't all the people who work inside behind a desk. They also happen to be the people who have to clean those buildings. They also happen to be the people who have to cook in that cafeteria. They also happen to be the people who work in those retail establishments. And their incomes are varied. And that's what I think is a livable community that allows for everybody to live there. Not an exclusive community where this is where you come to work, but you have to go live someplace else. Now, when we talk about CRA's role in redevelopment, let's understand how many millions and billions of dollars went into the skyline. What's bothersome to me is that we're treating people differently in this city. And we are being asked to waive a policy. We're being asked to create a policy that designates where the money can be spent. Those are the precedents that are dangerous. Because as I see our city as a whole, we have a housing crisis going on. That's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. We also have an economic crisis going on between the haves and the have-nots, and I've been talking about that for the last 10 years. So when it is that we decide that all people in the city should be treated equal and have the same kinds of advantages. Now, my district surrounds the Thomas Cadillac site where housing's going on. But it was part of the Central City West area. And there was a requirement that they build housing as part of their credits, affordable low-income housing. In that area, they got a waiver. They got an exemption. And they're not building the low-income housing, but it happened not to be my district. I would have never let it happen because the people it impacts are the people in my district. The people who live around that facility. This is no different. Members, colleagues, I will support the continuance, but I really think we should think about those 2 points right now. How we designate the money to be spent in what area, but also the issue, and we should sleep on it. Do we as a city want to continue to separate people by income? Do we want to create an enclave downtown called Bunker Hill for the haves and only the haves?
Mr. Huff. Mrs. Walters.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council members, you've heard some of our colleagues give some very good reasons why affordable housing should always be included. And I, on balance, agree with that and would have much preferred to see the affordable housing in this building downtown. It is not my wish to back off from the affordable housing requirements. It is a recognition of reality that the mayor wants this developed, and this is an RFQ or RFP going out. It's not, a developer has not been named. One of our council members wanted to know who the developer was and who did he own. There's no developer that's been assigned that I know about. This is an RFQ that is, excuse me, that is going out to seek interested parties who are interested in developing it. My preference would clearly be to have the affordable housing included in it. The agreement was to get affordable housing and some development money south of the 10 because money that had been available to CD9 before has been spent in other parts of the city. As to the housing that is being built by the freeway on the old Cadillac site, Mr. Hernandez, they are going to build affordable housing as a result of building there. Affordable housing was not ignored there, and it is not being ignored in this particular RFP, because monies will be set aside there to build affordable housing and other improvements in CD9 south of the 10 freeway. And that is the reason that I'm asking council members to vote for the majority report. It is not the report that I would prefer, but I'm going to hold my nose and vote for it and ask you to do likewise. And I ask that you not hold it over for tomorrow, because I will not be here tomorrow or the Friday. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, once again, and members, this is an issue that I had to be educated on. It took people like Alatorre, Torres, and Montoya fighting for this accommodation. And I got to tell you, I was totally insensitive as other members. They didn't get it on the first attempt because it didn't pass either house. It was hung in committees. Then finally, after a period of time, there are those of us who began to understand what they were saying, that many of these people have been removed from their land, virtually taken away from them, and there is no accommodations made. The monies that they received was never come close to the value of the property then and now, and we all are aware of that. Hey, I got to tell you, you just have to start listening sometime. And when the message finally sunk in, and they're not here to speak, I feel obligated to be the advocate. And I'm not going to take one step backwards on this issue. If the mayor got somebody who wants to respond to an RFQ, let him step forward and do that. I had no idea this was the mayor's project until today. And even if I had known, my position would be the same. It would not change. I'm just as emphatic and adamant about opposing this waiver today as I would have been had I known, because I think it's so unfair to change the policy, to change the rules for any individual. And that individual, I'm sure, is well known, not to us, but nevertheless well known to the policymakers. It is wrong. Ms. Walters is correct. She'd rather see the minority report. But politics being what it is not the minority report. Ms. Goldberg, I would just hope that you would join with us in the majority report. The minority report. Say, I do. That's great. I like that. Okay, well, we're switching now. May the minority become the majority. Thank you very much. So if you want to put it over to Lamara, fine. If you want to go at it today, up or down.
Okay. Now we have a motion. Mr. Hernandez made a motion that we can vote the minority report will. Huh? We have a motion to continue one day. Okay. Prepare the roll on that.
It's a point of order. I don't know what I think about the continuance one or the other, but Ms. Walters stated that she can't be here.
Right, tomorrow.
My point of order is this. Ms. Walters stated she can't be here tomorrow or Friday. My point of order is, if there is to be a continuance, is there any procedural or substantive reason not to continue it until next Tuesday, if there were to be one, when Ms. Walters could be here? When, Rita, are you back? Oh, it's a long time.
Is there any reason?
I don't know if there's an emergency associated with this decision or not from the standpoint of financing.
If I could respond to that, I don't think there's any emergency that this would not hold until after the 23rd of June.
It's been pending for how long?
At least 6 months or more.
I thought a couple of years.
I would want to change my motion to move a continuance until Councilmember Walters will be back, and if that's the 23rd, then on the 23rd.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I will be back in council on the 27th.
On the 27th.
Yes.
I would support that motion also.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion
Yes,
to
thank you.
continue until the 27th of June, is it?
And I will support that motion, 27th of
Okay.
June.
All right, prepare the roll on that. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Rita, you got a unanimous vote. Next item.
Item number 12 is also a majority and minority report.
No, that's been continued.
I'm sorry, item 13.
Merkin. Uh-oh. All right. There he is. There he is. The man who's driving the stake into the
Ms.
valley.
Misakowski?
And grins about
Okay,
it.
prepare the roll on item 9. Tabulate the vote. That is approved. Next, Ms. Misakowski?
Thank you, Mr. President. This
Was that item 13 that we just got?
No, 9.
No.
9.
This is a report, and I'm going to be moving the majority report. This is from the Ad hoc Committee on Special Reorganization secession, and we had some information from Mr. Merkin, our city attorney, that there is a opinion that LAFCO has asked for of its own legal counsel on the definition and the application of revenue neutrality as we move forward on the issue of any special reorganization. And our attorney, Mr. Merkin, has prepared such a letter and brought it to our committee, which we are bringing to the council, and asking for authorization to send the letter. It is not confrontative. Mr. Merkin asked the county council, who is preparing the legal opinion for LAFCO, if it would be appropriate for him to send the county council his information, his legal looking at this, and the county council indicated that would be worthwhile, that the county council would ask the other players in this, the applicants for any reorganization, to do the same. And so I think and I will ask Mr. Merkin to explain what he's put forward. This is what the majority of our committee has recommended, and it, I think, was the prudent course to have the city attorney present to us and present to LAFCO through the county council a position, a fairly well-founded position, citing cases, citing quotes, citing history, legislative history, and I will let him talk about what he's presenting.
Yes, Councilmember Miskowski, thank you. Mr. President, members of the council, Fred Merkin, City Attorney's Office. Let me talk to you about the proposed letter that we have before you. The letter is intended to present what we believe to be the law with regard to one particular aspect of the special reorganization or secession procedure. As many of you know, there is a state law, the Cortese-Knox Local Government Reorganization Act of 1985, that governs how governments are designed and redesigned. And there was an amendment in 1992 to that law that introduced what is referred to as the revenue neutrality requirement. This is a requirement that only applies to incorporations. But as we know, in a secession of part of the city from the city, what's being talked about is not only a detachment of part of the city, but an incorporation of that detachment as a new city. So revenue neutrality would apply because we're talking about an incorporation. Well, the question, I guess, that naturally arises is, what is revenue neutrality? The statute itself does not use the expression revenue neutrality, and Councilmember Bernson, as a LAFCO commissioner, pointed out that there is the reference in the statute to the revenues that would be lost by the city being substantially equal to the expenditures being made by the city for the area that's to be detached. So it's really a question of comparing what are we now spending on those particular areas of the city, and as compared to what revenue is being generated by those areas of the city, to ask the question, well, are they substantially equal? The law requires that they be substantially equal, and there is a consequence if the revenues that are produced in that detaching part of the city are in excess of the expenditures for that part of the city. In that situation, what the city would lose by way of revenue would exceed that which it would save by virtue of not having to serve the detaching part of the city. The meaning of revenue neutrality is that the city is not to be financially harmed. This legal requirement was actually developed in the context of counties facing the incorporation of parts of their unincorporated territory into cities, and facing the possibility that what might happen with that incorporation is that you would have a concentration of revenue generation at the expense of those left behind in the remaining portion of the county and the unincorporated territory. And the legislature was attempting to balance the equities, comparing the equities of those who would want to incorporate and self-govern as a city against those left behind in the remaining county. And so that balance took place in 1992 with regard to counties facing incorporations, and the same balance was brought to bear in 1997. In 1997, Cortese Knox was amended to make possible what we call the special reorganization or secession. At that time, it will be recalled, the city council lost its veto power. Up to that point, the city council could veto a detachment. In 1997, that veto power was taken away. In its place, there was to be a dual vote, one vote by majority of those in the proposed incorporated area, and another vote citywide. But also in contemplation at the same time was the existence of the revenue neutrality requirement. And it was as prominent so as to be found, for example, in an interview that the co-author of the legislation 1997, Assemblyman Tom McClintock, gave to the press, where he recognized the existence of revenue neutrality and offered that as essentially a safeguard for the citizens of the remaining city. He said essentially the same thing to Governor Wilson after the bill had passed the legislature and was awaiting the governor's signature. So it's clear from the legislative history of the legislation that made possible special reorganizations that revenue neutrality is part of the equation, is part of the picture. And the applicants before LAFCO have said as much about a year ago when they wrote to LAFCO asking for particular data. They said that they understood that the revenue neutrality requirement applied, and they said that they wished to work with LAFCO not only to achieve revenue neutrality, but so that the city of Los Angeles is not financially harmed. So is there a bottom line to this? There is a bottom line. We believe that the law provides that revenue neutrality requires that any proposal to be approved by LAFCO is not to cause the city of Los Angeles financial harm if there is to be a detachment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Sikowski.
Mr. President, as I think the city attorney has outlined, there, in fact, at our committee, the LAFCO people themselves indicated that they had no problem with this letter being sent to their county council. Mr. Merkin has read from the application of Valley Vote last August, which says that revenue neutrality was a principle that they understood and were moving forward with. And I think that it's much the much wiser course to put this out there now while we're discussing the issue before we really start the data collection, as we start really getting into putting things forward, to have clarity and everyone on the same page and understanding this issue. It may not come to pass that would be the case, but I think to start laying out this course in an open, understood manner where legislative history and process is put out there as we go forward makes sense, and that's why I am happy to recommend and move the majority report to have this letter transmitted by the city attorney to the county council.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, let me preface what I'm going to say by stating that I also serve on LAFCO and as such, I will have to make a judicial decision based upon no bias, which I've attempted to do. It's difficult wearing 3 different hats, but nonetheless, that's where I'm at. First of all, Mr. Merkin, I was the one that asked LAFCO to get an opinion from the council relative to what revenue neutrality means. And I don't specifically did not ask for the city attorney's office to offer such an opinion, because I know where that opinion is going to come from. And certainly there are probably a majority of the members around this circle that will probably feel that the same way. But my role there is to be fair and to try to analyze. I don't think anybody knows what revenue neutrality means, and that's why I asked for it. Ultimately, in fact, in Cortese Knox, which never had dealt with a secession of this type, was dealing with revenue neutrality, was dealing with the county, so that the county wouldn't lose any revenue because of an incorporation or an annexation. In this case, the county is not impacted in any way, shape, or form because it's strictly a city function. So that phase, as it relates to Cortese Knox, doesn't mean anything. So basically what we're looking at here is unplowed ground, a new area that nobody's ever dealt with, and what does revenue neutral mean? My opinion is that ultimately LAFCO will primarily LAFCO will make a decision based upon the consultants and the study, but ultimately it will be the California Supreme Court that will decide what revenue neutral means. It doesn't necessarily mean what Mr. Merkin said, that the area that is setting up a new city has to continue to pay for services that they're not going to get. In fact, I think that may be the argument that a lot of the people over in the valley have had, and maybe that's why we're here, dealing with the secession movement. I mean, that may be held to be unconstitutional. We don't know what the courts are going to do. On the other hand, I can understand where the city doesn't want to lose revenue, and I can't blame them from a city point of view. But I'm suggesting that this letter is premature. I don't think we ought to really send it. I mean, I know that nobody has any objection. We get letters from everybody, Mr. Merkin, and, we look at them and so forth. So, but the point is that I cannot support this at this time. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that nobody knows what it means. What we're doing is just offering what we would like to see it mean. And that's basically what you're doing, members of the council. I want you to understand that. I'm going to listen to the minority report, and I may vote no on this whole thing, or just walk out of the room so I don't have to vote on it.
Okay, Mr. Fuhr?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Merkin, as I mentioned a moment ago, in reviewing the letter, I did have a question. The letter focuses on the city attorney's view that revenue neutrality is a requirement here. But in reviewing the statute says the commission shall not approve a proposal unless it includes or finds what in essence is revenue neutrality. But then it says, notwithstanding that provision, the commission, LAFCO, can also approve the detachment and the incorporation if one of two things is true. One is the county and all of its agencies agree to the proposed transfer, or the negative fiscal effect has been adequately mitigated by a variety of steps. Mm-hmm. The commission, as I read this, could determine that secession could happen without revenue neutrality as defined by literally no negative effect one way or the other. Because the commission could, as I review this, say, we find by virtue of some agreement, which may in fact not equal pure revenue neutrality, that there has been an adequate mitigation of this stuff, of the fiscal issues. So what I'm trying to discern is this. The idea that revenue neutrality is a principle that should pertain to this seems accurate with regard to subdivision B of the statute. Subdivision C seems to allow for some flexibility on the part of the commission which may not equal revenue neutrality in the sense the term is used throughout the letter. I'd like you to opine on that, please, and I have a question to follow up.
Yes. I think I mildly disagree with you. I agree in part. The first prong of the exception says essentially if this city agrees, among others, if we were to agree, for example...
Yeah, forget that prong. Talk about the second prong.
The second prong is that if there has to be an adequate mitigation.
Right, but adequate mitigation does not revenue neutrality make.
Oh,
the
no,
Commission
no.
could make that determination and not say it's revenue neutral.
No. I think that there's an external standard here. I think the law would test any determination, any finding by LAFCO that it had adequately mitigated what it had determined to be a revenue neutrality failing in a proposal.
Why? Because, I mean, again, leaving aside the merits of secession, just understanding what the rules are for the moment, this says, notwithstanding the subdivision that pertains to revenue neutrality, if the Commission doesn't say those words, but that's the point, either of these things can happen, and then secession could occur if the Commission, it doesn't say if the Commission, circumscribed by other definitions of revenue neutrality elsewhere, it says the Commission without a definition, which I suspect means that in its discretion.
No.
Mr. President.
Here's the difference.
Point of order.
LAFCO has a great deal of discretion under Cortese Knox.
Yeah.
Great deal of discretion. If you look at the way the decisions they're able to make with regard to how to deal with the secession matter. There are two areas, however, two legal requirements that are qualitatively different. One is they have to determine that the proposed new city will have 3 years of viability. The second is revenue neutrality. Now, if revenue neutrality were as lax a doctrine as you are suggesting, if you are correct in that, then those who have been involved in a very bitter dispute, for example, in Sacramento County, with regard to what revenue neutrality has presented as a problem for incorporation, have been dead wrong all along.
Okay.
For example,
Mr., you have a point of order?
Yes, I just wish to know why these lawyers are,
arguing back and forth?
Yes, and reducing us to
that's what they were raised to do.
spectator status. That's what they were raised to do?
Yeah.
Well, let's lower them then.
Okay, let's hear from Mr. Savordich, who's not a lawyer.
John, it's genetic. It's not a behavioral thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. It is the opinion of this council member who sits on the ad hoc committee on secession or special reorganization, or whatever we want to call it, that the definition as proposed by the city attorney in regards to revenue neutrality is the silver bullet to which I believe this city is trying to attempt to kill secession in both the valley and the harbor. And the reason why I say that is that I cannot see a definition that is being proposed by the city attorney coming up in any way, shape, or form that achieves revenue neutrality between the city of Los Angeles and the Valley, or the city of Los Angeles and the greater harbor area. The reason being is that as we were discussing it in committee, is that we are talking about revenue neutrality. We're not talking about services neutrality. We're not talking about tax neutrality. We are talking about revenue neutrality. And as we were discussing it in committee, if you take the harbor area and take away the revenues that are generated in the harbor area out of the greater whole of the city of Los Angeles, there would have to be some type of offset, correct, Mr. Merkin, in regards to making up for that lost revenue from the harbor. And that offset possibly could be the amount of services that the harbor gets, and the same goes for the valley. And the difference being, as I understood in committee, is that if we get more services than there is revenue, you're okay. But if you get less services per se, which is the reason why the harbor and the valley want to leave in the first place, you would have to continue to pay your taxes to the city of Los Angeles, even if you did special reorganize or secede in order that it wasn't less than revenue neutral. And then in order to support your new municipality, you'd have to tax yourself on top of that. So you continue to pay your tithe to Los Angeles for the price of freedom, but then you have to tax yourself double in order to ensure that the services to your new constituents. Was that correct, Mr. Merkin?
Well, I wouldn't say it's taxing yourself double, but you are correct that if there were let's take the harbor area as an example, greater revenues generated in the harbor area than services received. You are correct, there would have to be a payment or some sort of mitigation, adequate mitigation, to make sure that the remaining residents of the city, the public served by the city, did not suffer financial harm.
And if
So
the
it's a-
services are less?
If the services are less, then revenue neutrality is not part of in the equation.
So what the city of Los Angeles is going to do through this entire endeavor is to prove to the valley and to the harbor area is that you get more services than you think you get. Hence, when you go ahead and try to go ahead and become your own city, you're going to have to continue to pay so the services in the other part of the city don't decrease, as well as having to pay for your new services. Correct?
Yes, I think what happened here is the legislature...
So you are paying double?
...balanced the equities. There are equities that you were speaking of with regard to those who wish to break away. But there are equities on the other side of those who were left behind.
So the argument that you're going to
Mr.
make, so the argument you're going to make to the people in the valley and the harbor is, go ahead, you can go ahead and be independent, you're just going to have to pay double to do it.
This is what, well, not double, but this is what the law requires.
Whatever it is, it might only be 10%. Mr. Deaton?
First off, to put this in perspective, the city attorney and Mr. Merkin is not saying, I all of a sudden lost track of my situation here. Anyway, the situation is one, is Mr. Merkin, the city attorney, is not saying that that anything about the relationship between the possible special reorganization in the valley or in the harbor department, in the harbor area. The question becomes whether or not revenue neutrality applies to special reorganizations. It is very clear, the law was put together in an instance where the city, the area of Solvang in Santa Barbara County and potential cities in the county of Sacramento were choosing an area that had high transient occupancy tax and high sales tax and was going to leave the county government in a very bad situation. The law was passed to make, if you're going to leave an entity, that in fact that entity remains constant. It doesn't lose, it doesn't gain. Secondly, the city attorney I think points out in the letter that the individual who carried the bill for special reorganizations to modify the Cortese-Knox legislation made it very clear that his legislative intent was, when he asked it to be passed and also when he asked it to be signed by the governor, that revenue neutrality in fact applied to special reorganizations. The facts will have to come out as to how this impacts whom in the process that we're going through now. But the only question is revenue neutrality apply to special reorganizations? And the city attorney is just pointing out that the legislative intent of the author of the bill was that it was. There are no provisions within the law that exempts it, and in fact it is involved. It is incorporated into the Knox-Cortese law as a part of it. And one last comment, if I might, in responding to Mr. Fuhr's comment. In fact, Citrus Heights, one of the issues in Citrus Heights was that because of the hotels and sales tax in Citrus Heights, the county of Sacramento was worse off. As a part of that incorporation, there was a agreed upon payment under the provisions that you provided for. With those payments, the findings of the individuals trying to incorporate the county and LAFCO in that area was that in fact was revenue neutral. But it required the agreement, notwithstanding the fact that that Citrus Heights has reneged on that agreement.
Okay, Mr. Deaton, you're worse than Nate Holden. Mr. Wax.
Mr. President, members of council, I was one of the minority members of the committee and would ask the council vote against transmitting this letter on behalf of the city. First of all, I think that the city attorney's letter is unsolicited. It was not asked for. No one asked them for it. They've done it on their own. Secondly, the city attorney has agreed there's no case law specifically on this. Third of all, I disagree with the city attorney's opinion. The city attorney's opinion, in my opinion, would make a mockery of the entire state law dealing with reorganizations. The city attorney's opinion would basically say that if an area has been shortchanged, in order for it to do anything about it, it has to continue to agree to be shortchanged. That really leaves people with a wrong without a remedy. It really, I think, makes a mockery of what the reorganization provisions are intended to accomplish. It basically tells you that if you've been wronged, the only way you can do anything about it is if you agree to continue to be wronged in the same manner. Let LAFCO do its job. It has its attorneys, it has its staff, and there is a recourse in the law if they don't do it properly. If things have been fair in the past, no one should have anything to worry about. The only thing anyone has to worry about is if, in fact, the people who are unhappy have been right. And if that's the case, then to deny them the right to do anything about it is inexcusable. So just let LAFCO do its job rather than telling them how to do the job in a slanted way that denies people the very rights that the law is intended to give them.
You know, I keep thinking about this, and what it really tells me is that the people who want this special reorganization are dissatisfied with the representatives of the council that represent the valley. That's what it means to me. Mr. Hernandez.
Is that you?
Yeah, I got part of it, yeah.
Glad you didn't say the harbor.
Yeah, they're dissatisfied with you, Rudy.
Be nice, I'll pull up your name plaque.
Mr. President, members of the council, one, I wanted to rise to point out that, for example, I think that Mr. Savornich understands very clearly the concept of revenue neutrality because we've had to deal with that with the port and the nexuses. And it's not automatic as to what you might believe are expenses that should be paid and reimbursed versus what they believe are expenses that should be paid and reimbursed. But you go through that all the time. And if there was a harbor succession, they would have to deal with those issues, but the reality is the port is something that's part of the entire city because of its impact on the economy and everything else. But I rose because I thought we'd already had this discussion on several occasions throughout this process. And the issue of revenue neutrality was understood throughout this process. And now it's being questioned. Am I correct or not correct?
I think there may have been references to revenue neutrality in some of the discussions in the past, but I don't recall a particular focus.
Right, but there was an understanding basically that it would be revenue neutral.
I think that's been the understanding so far as I've been aware of those who've been familiar with what's been going on.
And now that there's a focus on it, we're trying to change the rules. I just kind of wanted to rise because the basic concept throughout this process was that it would be revenue neutral. And I think that when Mr. Burnson made the statement that a lot of these decisions are going to be answered at the courts, at the highest courts of the state, he's probably true. What I do know is when I look at the zoning of the city and the history of the city, I have a clear understanding why the valley wanted to become part of the city. They needed infrastructures to be built. They needed roads to be built. I know that when I debate on this council floor how we spend our resources, I argue that for some reason my streets are used a lot more. I just don't get as much street maintenance because I don't have as many streets. And other areas where the streets are not used as much. But knowing the industrial-based land, knowing the commercial-based land, and knowing the residential-based land, clearly I think that the residential-based land costs more to maintain in terms of proportion of its use. So I'm kind of throwing it out because I think these issues are not going to be solved today. I think we as a city have an obligation to make the statement that we expect it to be revenue neutral because it's been part of our process and that we're going to deal with the ramifications of that throughout the process, and those questions will be answered by the courts. But I think we need to write the letter, and I would be supporting Ms. Miskowski on that issue.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, members, I don't understand the opposition here. And the reason why I don't is because LAFCO was here Mr. Burnson, and testified that they want the letter. And then they said, we invite the other parties, all interested parties, to submit a letter similar to what the city has done. LAFCO is going to have to rule according to state law. Revenue neutrality is an issue that they have to deal with. And all we're doing is putting our position on the table like early on. What's wrong with that? LAFCO, and eventually, in my view, is going to call for an election, no matter what. And it's going to go up or down. The sooner they get to it, the better off we're going to be. You got a few bunch of rebel-rousers, like that one guy, whoever his name is, that was here last time, and I told him he was a rebel-rouser, causing the taxpayers a lot of money and a lot of people a lot of pain on this issue, giving a false belief that something's going to change or happen, and it's not going to happen at all. People will suddenly realize that it costs more to separate than to stay together, and they'll do whatever they'll do. But the fact of the matter is the letter should be put on the table. The city of Los Angeles should not be denied an opportunity to express its point of view on neutrality. LAFCO will visit two issues, neutrality and mitigation if necessary, and also decide whether or not the community that wants to secede from the city of Los Angeles can in fact do that and be economically stable once that's done. And they'll make such a recommendation. If an election takes place with, notwithstanding what's before the people that LAFCO will put before them, they'll vote up or down. And that's the way it works, simple as that. So the legislators intended that revenue neutrality be an issue, even if it's in fact mitigated, given that one area will lose economically as opposed to another. Let the letter go forth. Nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to move the majority report. If it has not already been moved, and I'm going to vote for it. And we're going to vote for it today, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Mrs. Chick.
I'm losing my voice.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, colleagues, when and if it ever becomes time to fight a real battle over whether the city stays intact or is broken up, that's the time to engage in discussion of the pros and cons and the merits and the problems. There's a process underway that in fact could actually bring forth information that could benefit the city and could help the city improve itself. I'm not taking any issue today with the content of the letter, and it seems that the arguments support the fact that the law is already very clear and support my impression that there's not going to be a whole lot of disagreement on the interpretation of what the law says. But the second issue that's before us, besides the content of the letter and the opinion of the city attorney, is whether we should send the letter. And as I'm reading the report, it talks about, and contrary to what we just heard, not that LAFCO's asking us to submit, but that a representative of LAFCO stated that they have no objection to receiving the letter. If the point of the letter is to make our view known, it's been done. It was done in committee when you read that letter, Mr. Merkin. And so I object to this being before us today for a vote. I'm not going to vote to send the letter. I don't see any reason to do it. And I think it continues in what concerns me is a growing line of actions that basically are throwing the gauntlet down before there's a battle before us. Thank you.
Goldberg.
I'm just astonished by all of this. I have to tell you, there are a lot of debates that don't astonish me. This one does. If you read the first paragraph of the letter, it says, LAFCO Commission requested advice from your office, this is to Mr. Cratley, regarding the statutory requirement of revenue neutrality. You've confirmed that's a question that your office is looking at it, and you've graciously allowed the applicants the applicants, that's the applicants, that's one side in this, the applicants, and the City of Los Angeles, an interested party, to give you their views on the subject. I don't get what the debate is. This person has to write an opinion and actually would welcome the idea of getting views from the various parties that are interested in this as to what the definition means. Why is this an argument? I don't get it. I don't get it. This doesn't take a position for or against secession. It doesn't take a position for or against. It doesn't require LAFCO to do anything. It doesn't require this council that's going to write their opinion to take anything out of your letter. But this is a very common procedure. When someone's asked to render an opinion, they frequently ask folks involved what their views are. I don't get why this is so contentious. Unless somehow or another, one side doesn't want to go by the rules of revenue neutrality. And I don't believe that's the case, so I don't get what you're defending against. I think the letter should be sent. It's sent it is sent not to LAFCO, but to its council. It's sent to council, who is going to render its own decision and make its own opinion. It can only, in my opinion, help someone in that position to hear everyone's legal views on the legal question before it. It's submitting a brief, in essence, on the question. And I think every party that wants to ought to be able to do that. They've agreed with that opinion. I don't see any problem, and I really don't get this debate.
Mr. Fuhr.
Thanks, Mr. President. Because Mr. Ridley Thomas was so eager for additional legal debate, I thought I'd further the conversation. Sure. Fred, let me refine precisely what I'm concerned about here. Subdivision B contemplates revenue neutrality in a sense we kind of understand, which is, let's assume that secession by the harbor leaves the rest of the city $20 million short. We would say that revenue neutrality means that there's got to be some way to make up about $20 million. Under C, the language of the statute is such that the commission could say, you know what, we think a $5 million one-time lump sum payment is sufficient to make this deal work. A different result than what you get under subdivision B. And nothing that I see constrains the commission from taking an action like that. The letter should be sent, but the letter should be as credible as possible. So what I think should happen is that the letter should at least address the possibility that under C, you end up with a different result than under B, potentially, because I think it's true.
I disagree. I think that you'll notice that B only deals with the substantial equality situation. If it happens, if it so happens that the revenues and the expenditures are substantially equal, then they can approve it. But what happens if the revenues are greater than? And if the revenues are greater than, we go down to C. And C says if we reach agreement, that's one thing. But otherwise, we're talking about an adequate mitigation. Adequate mitigation. And I think it's a standard that the law applies to LAFCO. And so you just present a hypothetical of a $20 million deficit that is arguably or allegedly being made up by a $5 million lump sum payment. Well, there's a point of contention there, because there'll be those who will say that is not adequate.
Yeah, but does the statute allow for those voices to be heard, or is it up to the commission to decide in its own discretion?
It's not unfettered discretion on the part of LAFCO, in my opinion.
I mean, you've studied this more than I have, but on the face of things, I'm not sure. The reason I care about this is not to extend a lawyerly debate, but rather to figure out a way for the discussion to be as clear, direct, and understandable as possible, and for the letter to be credible so that later on someone doesn't say, gee, you didn't take adequate account of the process under which subdivision C could end up with a different result, and by failing to do that, the credibility of your other arguments gets undermined. That's what I want to avoid.
Yeah, if I would have seen your argument in some other place, in the legislative history, in any commentaries, in news articles, I haven't seen that. In other words, what I'm saying to you is revenue neutrality has actually been perceived as a problem. I mean, this is nothing new. This goes back. Perceived as a serious barrier to incorporation. What you're suggesting is it's really not such a barrier after all. I have not heard that. I've not seen that.
All right. All right, John.
Ms. Sikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, I want to read something to you. This is from last August, and it's from Valley Vote. Valley Vote's intention is to meet the requirement of revenue neutrality as set forth by the California Code section. Valley Vote is not seeking a special reorganization as a means of avoiding financial responsibility and understands the principle and need for revenue neutrality so that the existing residents of the City of Los Angeles who will remain with Los Angeles are not financially harmed or deprived as a result of a special reorganization. Those are the words last August of Valley Vote in their application. The letter that Mr. Merkin is putting forward, and I believe we should send it. I don't think it does us much good to say we have a letter from the city attorney and we're going to keep it over here. There was the county council is happy to have legal briefs written. Valley Vote is going to provide one. We should provide one. And what Mr. Merkin's letter does is inform the legal counsel of LAFCO, this position, his position, historic position, and then it's clear. LAFCO's county council will do its own work. But I think we should send it. There's no harm in it. And in fact, I think not sending it is saying, you know, we're going to keep it somewhat private even though we've had public discussion about it. So I think we should just move forward. It is not confrontative. It is not in conflict with anything. It's actually consistent with all previous action, including that of the main mover of where we are today, and that's Valley Vote. They had no objection to it as presented to our committee. LAFCO had no objection to it. I don't know why anyone around this room is objecting to it. So I, again, urge that we vote for the majority report.
Mr. Burnson? Any objections to that? Seeing none, the previous question has been imposed. Now we have, what do we have before us? The
Majority report.
majority report. Prepare the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 4 noes.
That is approved. Next item.
Item number 19, called special by Council Member Walters.
Mrs. Walters, 19. Yeah, forthwith on item 13.
This is the bill that would elevate the city library security officers, give them an elevated peace officer status. And they claim that it would not give them the power to arrest nor the power to serve warrants. I do not believe this elevated peace officer status is needed, and I would urge us to oppose this bill by our former colleague.
Ms. Goldberg?
Before I speak, I'd like to hear what our learned colleague at the desk has found, given that it was his report that made me change my position on it.
If you'll ask Mr. Hernandez to quit chuckling, I'll be happy to.
Then I'd like to.
Anyway, over last week, we took a look at this, and one of the things that the council had, members of the council had discussed was the possibility of having this done locally. And what we would suggest is that the legislation be opposed unless there's two provisions. One is that state law would be permissive. We would have to pass, the city would have to pass an ordinance in order to establish it, and there would have to be a memorandum of understanding between the library department and the police department for the operation of it to happen. That way, we have two ways of local control to allow this to happen, but without that state permission, they cannot be allowed to do the arrestor thing. So this would allow us to keep it at a local decision, but at the same time, without the state legislation, we couldn't do it on our own. Because it's security, working out who calls. It's the same, actually it's the same requirement that was in a law last year relative to our taxi cab inspectors, that the legislation provided for a memorandum of understanding between that group and the police department. I discussed it briefly with the police department. They didn't seem to have a problem. I think that's a way of working through. We would oppose unless those two were provided.
Well, then I'll move that, because there's no local control issue. We don't have control of making the decision now, isn't that true?
The decision to allow them to arrest or, no.
Right.
But
So the reason we haven't done it before now is because we couldn't do it before now. And we had actually asked the legislature to do what Alarcon is doing in a previous session. Wasn't that a city-sponsored bill?
at one point, that was the case. And the situation is that Post had done a study, and this was one of the ones that it indicated that peace officer status might be appropriate.
It might be appropriate.
Right. So there was I did review the file. I did recommend we not do that at that time, so at least in that sense I was consistent. But nonetheless, I think that this, if the law was passed in this particular fashion, if the city and the council chose to, it could do so if it wanted to at a later date.
So maybe we should say we will support if amended, to say what you said. You said oppose
Unless amended. I think oppose unless amended means that unless it's amended, we won't.
Okay.
We won't.
I don't know what the
agree.
difference is between the two, but it's all right.
It's a message.
Okay. All right. Because colleagues, I actually do believe that I would oppose arming library security, that for sure, but I do know that they find in the instances where it comes up that the amount of time it takes someone from their post to wait for LAPD, because LAPD has other things to do, is rather enormous. And I've talked now to a few of the folks and gotten some information. So I do support the idea of the limited peace officer status that we're talking about. But I agree that I'd rather we do it here locally, but that's not an option at this point. So I'll move that we oppose unless amended, and then I'll urge that we get that amendment, because I would like us to have the option to do it, and I believe that it should be done. But in the limited fashion that it's being proposed by the library department.
We have somebody that came in after we had closed the public hearing on this item. Tanya Maria Rosario. Do you want to be heard? We only give you a couple minutes.
Mr. President, thank you, members of the council. I just wanted to clarify that the Chief Legislative Analyst's Office, or the Legislative Counsel Office in Sacramento, their summary and their recommendation on Senate Bill 158 does include recommending that a memorandum of agreement between the City of Los Angeles and the library department be part of the legislation, and that was their suggestion to amend the legislation as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Hernandez.
Members of the council, I don't have a problem with the proposal of Mr. Deaton that we basically support the legislation if amended to include those two things. But I wanted to word it that way, as opposed to opposing the legislation unless those two things happen. Did we have anything to do with the creation of this legislation? Because that's where the confusion came last time around.
Not this specific legislation, but there was a piece of legislation that was put into as a sponsorship. This piece was eliminated.
Okay.
But the reintroduction of did not come back through the council.
So it did not come back the way initially we would have liked it to have done.
That's right.
And that's why I support the recommendation, as long as it's to support the legislation if amended. And if it's not amended, then we'd be opposing it.
That's opposed unless amended.
I understand that. I'm trying to be respectful of the process.
The process is such that you have to send your message clearly and succinctly.
Speaker Mitras is on the phone.
Tell him hi.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, members, if you keep throwing in the towel and caving in, the time will come very soon when home rule means nothing. That Sacramento will be telling you exactly what to do and when to do it, and And that's what you'll do. You'll dance to their music. Here's another clear example of how a special interest group within the city did an end run around this council district. This council went to Sacramento and got their own author to do their own thing. And if you guys are not listening, Mr. Burnson, then they did their own thing. And this just one step. They've taken other steps before. The airport, the list goes on. And this legislation is earmarked targeting just the city of Los Angeles. I have been against arming library security guards. They want to be police officers, let them become police officers. Now, what about the park rangers? Some of those guys are armed. Is that not correct, Mr. Deaton? What kind of authority did we give them that I voted against? They're in the process of still putting it together? I know they had a long discussion about giving them some authority and giving them weapons, and you didn't ask Sacramento to do that. We had the local authority to do that, and as we had local authority to do it with the park rangers, we have the local authority to do it with the
Mr. Holden?
security guard.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Holden didn't say he was against libraries, did he?
Now, Mr. Holden is a longtime supporter of libraries
Well, okay,
everywhere.
'cause he just
Mr.
built
Holden,
a
your
new
time
one.
has expired, however.
No, but it's
You're actually into the next person's time.
Right. Just
Mr.
built a
Holden,
new
please.
library over there.
I
Nice.
spoke 3 minutes.
I'm just telling you. Ms. Mizakowski.
3
It
minutes
seemed
and
like
1
3
second.
minutes to me.
Yeah.
I was going to move continuance on this, but I think what has been recommended by the city legislative analyst is the right course, and that is to oppose it, recommend opposing it unless amended, and that amendment then brings it back to us to decide locally what we want to do. Members of the council, I think there's already been a motion brought by Councilmember Goldberg that's going to both Public Safety and Personnel to deal with this issue in committee, in the Policy Committee. I'm looking at a report actually from '97 that was sent to Public Safety from Personnel talking about all the issues, the special officers, the security officers, the various departments, who's doing what, and we have an array not consistent. And whatever we are doing, we need to look at it as a whole, make it consistent, but do it locally. And so I think that this effort is appropriate, but we ought not to mandate and create from Sacramento a mandate on us and take away that local control. So I think that is the recommendation that Mr. Deaton has made, and that is the reasonable course for us to follow.
Thank you, Ms. Mizakowski. Mr. Ridley Thomas. Oops.
Done, Mr. President,
Pardon me?
are we done?
Mr. Holden wishes to speak to conclude his remarks.
Oh, I see. Well, go right ahead. No more book burnings, though. We
Okay.
need
Mr. Holden, because of the graciousness of our colleague, Mr. Ridley Thomas, on his time. And Ms. Chick also wishes to speak.
tell us about that new library you built over in the 10th District, Nate.
Oh, it looks great, doesn't
It's
it?
wonderful.
And it's not an armed camp either.
No.
Thank you very much.
Indeed.
We don't choose to have it that way because the kids would be afraid to go in, bullets flying and all. But thank you, Mr. Thomas. I guess my time is now running. The time, because they made a mistake before under my time. Mr. Deaton, did we ask the author to introduce this legislation?
No.
We did not. No, and that's the point I'm trying to make. This is the beginning of the end for home rule. Unless we can talk to some of our guys up there and tell them to leave us alone, you'll be having a debate like this on a daily basis. I am not in favor of giving those guys police power at all. But if you guys want to do it, I have no problem with that. I thought you had the local authority to do that. You don't. All right, so then request it. So therefore, you can deal with all security guards across the board at the same time. What about the security guards here at City Hall? Were they given police power to arrest?
I believe so.
Some of them were. Did you ask Sacramento to permit that to happen? By what authority were you able to do that?
My recollection is the legislation was put in without city involvement, at least initially.
Was it across the board?
No.
Just for City Hall's security guards?
A limited number, yes.
A limited number. And that legislation was specific in that regard?
Yes.
Or do you know?
My recollection is yes.
Was it?
Yes.
So fine. So they went to Sacramento and once again took it away from you. All right, there's your answer.
But, Mr. Holt, in this instance, I think notwithstanding, we did have this in a prior bill, and we had sponsored, and I think that there was some misunderstanding. I don't agree with the process that went through to get to where we are today, but I do believe that if we are able to get the amendments that I spoke of...
Okay, fine. If you get the amendments, you don't oppose it.
We have, and then we have...
It's for the city of LA only. The legislature is going to assume that you're not opposing it, therefore you're supporting it. It'll go through as amended, period. Okay?
Mr. President, for an introduction, please.
Okay, Mr. Ridley Thomas.
We're delighted to have with us today students from the Coliseum Elementary School. They are third and fourth grade students, the gifted class, and they are accompanied by their teacher, Ms. Handy. Won't you stand and welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Chick. Did you want to be heard?
My questions have been addressed already.
Oh,
Thank you.
Gee, that's
Not unusual.
okay. Okay, we have the recommendation of the committee, or Mr. Holden's. Okay. All right, prepare the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that. Next item.
Item number 20, you had a card on the item, but I believe the speaker did not wish to be heard.
Ms. Goldberg, item 20. Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. This matter was heard in committee, Personnel Committee, and it was thoroughly reviewed by the committee, particularly the chair. And what I wish to do, Mr. President and members of the council, pursuant to input from the head of the Personnel Department as well as the head of the Ethics Commission, is to move this item forward and essentially remove any penalty that would be in place that would cause the employee involved, Ms. Washington, from being able to compete fully and fairly, as we would want all of our city employees to be able to do. Suffice it to say that after reviewing this with some considerable care, it was determined that there is no substantial way to sustain any wrongdoing on this employee's part, and we wish to recommend that we move forward without any penalty being assigned to Ms. Washington, and I would so move.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, prepare the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council.
Yeah, members of the council, I just got this notice. One of our former colleagues, Hernani Bernardi, has an orchestra now, and it's a big band swing dance, a 16-piece orchestra that will be playing at the Sportsman's Lodge tomorrow night at Wednesday. Band plays from 8 to 11. I had the opportunity to hear them a month or so ago, and they're really terrific.
Let the good times roll, Mr. President.
Yeah, that's a big band, and you know, many of you may not remember that Mr. Bernardi was a former arranger and lead saxophone for Benny Goodman, Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey, and Bob Crosby. Probably a lot of you probably never heard of those people, but they were big time bands. Okay, the next item.
Item number 23, called social by Councilmember Swornit.
Mr. Savornich.
Yes, Mr. President, there was an amending motion to item number 23, which was just to extend the period of time that the services the DOT was going to provide be accelerated by 1 week. It was just an amending motion. I believe it has been circulated, and I would like to move that change. So it's 23 as amended by 23A, I believe.
Okay, there's no objections to the amendment. Prepare the roll on 23 as amended. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that. Next item.
Item number 26, called special by Councilmember Holden.
Mr. Holden, you call 26 special? Mr. Holden is looking out for the city's money.
Just raising some questions of why we have to return all this money. And this can become a habit and could generate a shortfall in the estimated budget. And so I just asked the clerk that he explain, and I'm sure he should be able to rationalize the point as to why he's doing what he's doing.
One of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing is because the taxpayer is owed the money based on an incorrect tax rate. They paid at the 21,190 rate, which is $591 per thousand. They should have paid at a lower rate at $2.96 dollars per thousand and $4.14 per thousand. I discussed with Mr. Holden the actual dollars because he had requested that information at the council meeting the other day. I cannot publicly disclose that information. I'd be happy to discuss privately with any members of the council that information. The other question that Mr. Holden raised with me both publicly and privately was the issue of whether this would affect the budget revenues. When we do put together the budget estimates and the revenue estimates that we provide to the mayor and the city council and the CAO, we historically use the refunds versus the audit recoveries. We do not include in those estimates extraordinary situations. We have, as I indicated to Mr. Holden, we have a number of audits going on with long-distance telephone, cell phone companies that at this point are going to, if they prove out to be on our side, will be a significant revenue increase. Those numbers are not in the budget estimates. This is a routine refund that was put in the budget, so there should be no impact on the budget numbers for this year, Councilman Holden.
Right, just a rate assessment. One is $2 and others different.
One was $296 and
Yeah.
$414 versus the higher rate, which is a
And that
pure
was
service.
based on judging what? The rates were...
Their activities.
It's a different service, yeah, one activity.
What activity are you actually performing, and how are you doing that? They should have been treated as a commission broker in one instance and as a broker in another, as opposed to a pure service.
All right, so you feel satisfied that we're doing the
Yes,
right
sir.
thing?
This was done on an extensive audit for 91 to 96.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Well done. I mean, if I say I feel good about it, that means you did okay.
Okay. Okay, prepare the roll on 26, is it? Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item.
This is the time for comments from the public on non-agenda items.
Okay, we have Richard Robinson wants to be heard. Richard Robinson. That's the only card we have, and apparently he has left, so we'll close the public comment period. The next item, item 30, we have somebody who wants to be heard on item 30. So we have Michael Kane.
Michael Connie.
Connie.
Thank you, Mr. President and council members. I'm General Counsel for the Los Angeles Police Revolver and Athletic Club, LAPRAC. I'm here to speak on behalf of the over 20,000 members of LAPRAC who are active and retired members of the Los Angeles Police Department. And there apparently are two items on your closed session agenda today dealing with LAPRAC. The first involves LAPRAC's permit at the Academy. And on March 15th of this year, the full council approved an amendment to the permit extending it through August of 2005. And LAPRAC is anxious and hopeful to promptly finalize that amendment, and we hope to receive it soon from the city attorney's office. The second issue greatly concerns LAPRAC and indicates that the council is considering litigation against LAPRAC involving trademark issues. The trademark issues have just recently arisen. And as you know, LAPRAC has worked with the City of Los Angeles, supporting the Los Angeles Police Department for over 50 years in its training of police officers, in the athletic programs that it sponsors and administers for LAPD officers, and in helping assist training officers, maintaining that fine level of training for the benefit and morale of all of the officers of the Los Angeles Police Department. LAPRAC has always worked with the city to support and improve the Los Angeles Police Department, and we are anxious to continue in that role, and we would urge the City Council to consider sitting down and meeting with us to resolve these new issues that have arisen regarding trademark questions and rights, and LAPRAC is very willing and desirous of sitting down to resolve any of these issues. And so I would urge the City Council to defer any talk or decisions of litigation in the hopes that reasonable minds can sit down and resolve these issues. So thank you very much.
We're going to go into executive session on this item. It's a closed session item, so we thank you for being here.
Thank
Richard,
you.
Richard, we closed the public hearing because you weren't here, and
Well, all I was going to say, Mr.
yeah, go ahead and say it because you're not very long, and if you're too long, I'll cut you off.
All right, here it is. It's very short, succinct. Mr. Bernardi now has a website, www.nonisource, NONISOURCE.com.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go into executive session, so all not involved with the executive session, please leave the council chamber. And while we're doing that, let's continue whatever we have on the desk.
Motions for posting and referral.
There's no objections, unanimous vote.
You have excuses on the desk. Councilmember Fuhr requests to arrive at 10:45 tomorrow. City business meets council policy.
Unanimous vote.
Councilmember Pacheco requests to be excused Friday, June 23rd. City business meets council policy.
Unanimous vote.
That clears the desk.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go to an executive session, so Sergeant, back in open session. Is there anything else on the desk?
The desk is clear, Mr. President.
Okay. Okay, we do have some adjourning motions, I believe. Would everyone please stand? I'd ask that we adjourn in Rafaela Valadoda, who died in an automobile accident Saturday, the 3rd of June. Rafael leaves 4 children, and one of them is Felipe Chavez, who's one of the newest members in the CLA's office. We'd ask we adjourn in her memory. Mrs. Chick?
Yes, I just wanted to remind us all colleagues that today, June 6th, is the 56th anniversary of D-Day, the Allied invasion of Normandy. 56 years ago, on this morning, a flotilla of 5,000 ships carrying tens of thousands of U.S., British, and Canadian troops landed on a 60-mile stretch of the French coastline and began the liberation of Europe. And back home, thousands of American families lost loved ones. Casualty rates of killed and wounded among the Allied troops was phenomenally and tragically high. Today in New Orleans, the National D-Day Museum was dedicated. It's fitting that we take this moment to remember all of the people who lost their lives on this day 56 years ago.
Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask that we adjourn in memory of Paul Smith. Paul E. Smith was a very important volunteer at the Felicia Mayhood Senior Services Center and at the Claude Pepper Senior Center. He was someone who was really moved to try to contribute to the city as a senior citizen. His career is really quite extraordinary. He had 40 years of experience in marketing and public relations. He was involved at the two senior centers in program implementation, administrative duties. He worked with patrons. He counseled with volunteers. He was known for being someone of special wit, humor, patience, and creativity. There will be a memorial tribute to Paul Smith on Saturday, June 10th at 3:30 at the Felicia Mayhood Senior Multipurpose Center at 11338 Santa Monica Boulevard in West LA. I ask we adjourn in his memory.
Ms. Goldberg.
Yes, I ask, and I'm sure several of you will want to join me, that we adjourn in memory of Mr. Cecil Aguirre, who passed away of a heart attack on May 30th.
No, I definitely.
He was a current board member of the Lincoln Heights Chamber of Commerce. He's the past president, current member also of Lincoln Heights Optimist Club. But he was a long-time community volunteer. He was very active in the political and civic and social life of Lincoln Heights. He's survived by his wife, Evangelina Aguirre, their 2 sons and a daughter, and I know that that community will sincerely miss his presence.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah, Mr. President, members of council, Mr. Aguirre was a personal friend and a supporter, and I know that he'll be missed in Lincoln Heights because of all his involvement as part of the long-term leadership, and he was part of the mainstream of Lincoln Heights, and he'll be missed sorely. Mr. President, I also would ask that we adjourn in the name of Joe Cruz, a neighbor, constituent of mine, who passed away Monday, and kind of caught everybody off guard. He was 42 years old, and I had the pleasure of attending his wedding, and just recently, so just ask that we adjourn in Mr. Cruz's name, and I'll get the details to the clerk. And I also understand that on Friday you adjourned in the name of Tito Puente, and I know it was all members, and I'd like to be a co-signer to that. Tito came to the council chambers on several occasions as part of my invitation, and he's going to be sorely missed in the Latino community as one of the archives of Latin jazz.
Ms. Sikowski.
I would like to have the council adjourn in the memory of Jonas Rosenfield. He's the former president of the American Film Marketing Association, who helped independent filmmakers compete with major studios. He was sometimes referred to as the Jack Valenti of the Indies, and he pulled together a group of bickering and disparate groups to a major trade association and allowed them to market their films internationally and compete with the major film studios. And through this kind of effort, we've had the increase in quality of films through the more recent years, such as The English Patient, Shine, and Sling Blade, all independents that would not have been able to be marketed and produced in the way that this group helped produce. And he will be missed as the president of this association. He is survived by his wife, Nina.
Mrs. Walters.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the council to adjourn in memory of my very close personal friend, Mr. James T. Smith. Jim and his wife, Barbara, have been my very close personal friends for well over 30 years. He had retired as a principal, an elementary school principal in the school district. He was devoted and dedicated to children and the achievement of children. He fostered many programs when he was principal, when he was a teacher, when he was a human relations person in the Los Angeles Unified School District that would bring people together. Since he has been retired, he has been working in a program that the school district sponsors to train teachers to be more effective leaders and to get them in, new teachers or people who had not previously gone into education, to get them into education, get their credentials so that they could become qualified teachers. He had also, on the weekends, been managing and organizing a class run by the Council of Black Administrators called COBA Saturday School for children over at USC. Beyond that, he was extremely active in his church, participating in the United Methodist Church, participating on many boards and commissions in the church. He was equally active in his neighborhood, and was just loved and respected wherever he went. And of course, he also managed to find quite a bit of time to spend on the golf course. Jimmy was a vibrant man right up to the end. He passed away. He had a massive stroke a week ago. Saturday, he passed away this past Saturday, and his service is tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Holman United Methodist Church on West Adams. He will surely be missed.
Call the roll. The council is adjourned.